They left me for dead, my own family. I remember the screech of tires, the sickening crunch of metal, and then darkness. They thought the staged accident had worked. They thought they had finally inherited my trillion-dollar empire. But they were wrong. Someone found me, a flicker of life in the wreckage. A woman, her face etched with worry, pulled me from the brink. Her name was Sarah, a single mother living in a rundown apartment, her heart far richer than my entire fortune. She nursed me back to health, sharing her meager meals and offering a kindness I hadn't known since my parents were alive. In the quiet humility of her small home, a man who once commanded boardrooms and moved markets with a single word, was completely helpless. I couldn't even remember my own name. The world knew me as Alex Thorne, the phantom trillionaire. But to Sarah and her bright-eyed daughter Lily, I was just John, a man with haunted eyes and bandaged wounds. Days turned into weeks. I watched Sarah work tirelessly, juggling 2 jobs just to put food on the table. I saw the pure joy in Lily's eyes when she drew me a picture of her new daddy. These simple moments, these genuine connections, were more valuable than all the gold in my vaults. A new purpose began to form within me, not of vengeance, but of justice. My memories started returning in flashes, the smug face of my cousin Richard as he tampered with my car's brakes, my aunt's cruel laughter as they planned my demise. They wanted my money, but they had stolen something far more precious, my trust. Living in that tiny apartment, I started to rebuild. Not my empire, but myself. I used a beat-up laptop from a pawn shop, my fingers flying across the keys with a muscle memory I didn't know I possessed. I started small, making strategic micro-investments with the little money Sarah lent me, money she couldn't afford to lose. I turned her $50 into $500, then $5,000. She was amazed, but I just smiled. This was child's play. My mind, once a weapon of corporate warfare, was now my tool for a quiet revolution. My plan wasn't about a hostile takeover or a public shaming. That was the old Alex. The new John wanted a different kind of victory. I began subtly buying up shell corporations, routing funds through untraceable accounts, and acquiring controlling stakes in the very companies my family was now mismanaging into the ground. They were celebrating, hosting lavish parties, completely oblivious that the ghost they created was slowly, methodically, and silently dismantling their new kingdom from the shadows. One by one, their assets began to vanish. A major deal would collapse at the last second. A key subsidiary would suddenly declare bankruptcy. A trusted executive would mysteriously resign. Richard grew frantic, his paranoia mounting. He started accusing everyone, his own allies turning against him in the chaos. He was living in a nightmare of his own making, haunted by a specter he couldn't see. He couldn't fathom that the architect of his downfall was a man living in a crumbling tenement, sharing instant noodles with a little girl who called him Dad. The final move was poetic. I targeted their crown jewel, Thorne Industries itself. Through a complex network of proxies, I initiated a vote of no confidence. The board, already spooked by the company's plummeting value, was eager to oust the incompetent new leadership. The day of the board meeting, I watched the live stream from Sarah's apartment. Richard, sweating and disheveled, made a pathetic plea to retain control. It was then that the new majority shareholder was announced. The name that flashed on the screen wasn't Alex Thorne. It was a new holding company, its sole owner listed as Sarah Jensen. Confusion erupted. Who was Sarah Jensen? At that exact moment, my lawyer walked into the boardroom and placed a single document on the table, a full transfer of my entire fortune and all controlling shares to Sarah and Lily. My family was left with nothing. Not a single cent. They weren't just broke, they were irrelevant. Their greed had cost them everything. My revenge wasn't loud or violent, it was gentle. It was the quiet elevation of a kind soul over a nest of vipers. As they were escorted out of the building by security, I was on my knees, playing with Lily on the worn-out carpet. Sarah walked in, her phone buzzing with calls from news outlets and banks. She looked at me, her eyes filled with a million questions. I simply smiled and said, "It's all yours. You and Lily deserve a good life." This wasn't just about revenge. It was about a new beginning. I had lost an empire but gained a family. I had learned that true wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in love, kindness, and the simple joy of a child's laughter. My name is Alex Thorne, and this is the story of how I died, was reborn, and found my real fortune. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to follow for more stories like this.